Solomon Northup, a talented but modest man who meets two gentlemen named Brown and Hamilton. They compliment his singing abilities and extend an invitation to join their circus troupe. Unaware of the tragic turn his life is about to take, the story unfolds with Solomon Northup. He is welcomed warmly and paid handsomely, his talents toasted by the very man who would betray him. The celebration turns sinister as Solomon's drink is spiked, leading to his capture. He awakens in chains, his identity and freedom stripped away, falsely branded as a runaway slave from Georgia. Despite his protests and promises of retribution, he is met with cold indifference. In a heart-wrenching scene, a young boy, separated from his mother, is consoled by Solomon, who promises her return. As the grim reality sets in, Solomon and the others face the harrowing journey southward, towards an uncertain fate in the markets of New Orleans. The story continues with a grim acceptance of the fate that awaits individuals who live in a slave state, where freedom seems like a distant dream. John, imprisoned not by kidnapping but by debt, holds out a glimmer of hope for redemption. The terrible reality of their plight becomes clear as they are herded like livestock, the overseer's words ringing coldly. Amidst the misery, a voice of resistance rises, calling them to fight for their freedom, but the threat of death drowns out the call to arms. Solomon Northup, who was previously encircled by his family, is now dealing with the loss of his identity and the terrible burden of survival. In a twist of destiny, Clemens Ray is returned by his owner, leading Solomon to face the perilous voyage alone, clinging to the prospect of living rather than simply surviving. As the story progresses, we find Solomon in a new era, a free man once more, engaged in the simple act of purchasing a cravat, in stark contrast to the tribulations he faced. At the slave market, human lives are traded and sold. Solomon, now known as Platt, looks dazed as he is auctioned off alongside Eliza, who urgently pleads for her children to be included in the sale. Mr. Ford, the supposedly more compassionate bidder, negotiates for Platt and Eliza, but the ruthless broker refuses to sell Eliza's kid, viewing her as a future investment. The scenario depicts the harshness and inhumanity of slavery, with families torn apart and individuals turned to property. Solomon's identity is further eroded as he is obliged to respond to the name Platt, a bitter reminder of his lost freedom. The story's heartbreaking conclusion occurs when Solomon, sometimes known as Platt, and Eliza are sold to Mr. Ford. Eliza's heartbreaking pleas to keep her children with her are ignored, and she is forcibly taken from them. The harshness of the situation is obvious as the overseer, Mr. Chapin, coldly informs her that she will quickly forget her children after a meal and rest. The chief carpenter, John Tibiatz, exerts his control over the new slaves with a nasty song, emphasizing their sad reality. Despite Mr. Ford's goodwill, Solomon is reminded by Eliza's pain that they are still in bondage, regardless of the circumstances. The story concludes with a stunning reflection on the nature of slavery and the human spirit's never-ending quest for freedom and dignity. The story of Solomon Northup, a free man trapped in slavery, is one of tenacity and survival against the grim backdrop of 19th century America. Despite the sorrow and inhumanity he experiences, Solomon maintains hope and a sense of self. He bears the violence of his captors and the separation from his family, all while navigating the perilous waters of a society that regards him as nothing more than property. His journey is a monument to the human spirit's resilience, as well as a melancholy reminder of humanity's darkest moments. Solomon's experience, as depicted in 12 Years a Slave, is a powerful narrative of freedom, identity, and the unwavering quest of justice. In the repressive world of slavery shown in 12 Years a Slave, Solomon Northup, often known as Platt, faces the brutal realities of his condition. Despite his background as a free man, he is now subject to his owner's whims. The dialogue depicts the friction between Solomon and his master, Ford, who recognizes Solomon's special nature but is also constrained by his own debts and society norms of the time. The emphasis on cotton-picking quotas and the severe treatment of those who fail to meet them adds to the terrible and humiliating environment. Solomon's tenacity is tested as he navigates a strange society, compelled to conceal his true identity in order to survive. The story serves as a vivid reminder of slavery's inhumanity as well as the tenacity of those who endured it. In the midst of unrelenting suffering and abuse, Solomon Northup, sometimes known as Platt, navigates the perilous world of slavery with tenacity that belies his surroundings. Despite the continual fear of violence and the loss of his dignity, he remains hopeful for liberation. Interactions with his oppressors are tense, as he must delicately balance his urge for self-preservation with the need to assert his humanity. Through it all, Solomon's narrative exemplifies the tenacity of people who oppose persecution, as well as the human desire for freedom and justice. In the cruel world of slavery, the plot revolves around Solomon Northup, often known as Platt, and his encounters with those who claim ownership over him. The tale conveys the enslaved's sorrow and desperation, particularly in Patsy's heartbreaking plea to Platt to terminate her life, which he rejects. The plantation owner is burdened by his own problems, which he blames on his slaves. Platt, despite the hardship and forced work, is recognized for his musical talent, which provides him with a little break from the fields. The story also features Armsby, a former overseer forced to harvest cotton alongside slaves, demonstrating the psychological toll of such a duty. Platt navigates this terrible reality while maintaining his dignity and humanity in the face of constant dehumanization. In a furious argument beneath the stifling sun, Epps and Bass confront the harsh reality of slavery. Epps, a man of his period, regards his slaves as property, which he expresses with unnerving pride. Bass, a tourist, confronts this concept with a simple but deep inquiry concerning ownership rights, invoking the timeless values of justice and righteousness that transcend color and creed. The conversation takes a turn when Bass notes that laws might change, meaning that the very freedom Epps takes for granted could be taken away, forcing him to consider the true nature of rights. This brief discussion captures a bigger conversation about humanity, equality, and the ongoing search for justice. In the midst of a violent plantation, a conversation takes place that exposes the inhumanity of slavery. Blinded by possession, regards his slaves as nothing more than property, whereas Bass, a man of principle, confronts this viewpoint with a vision of global equality. The tension rises as Patsy, a slave, is falsely accused and sentenced to a terrible penalty, despite her appeals and the clear injustice of the situation. This heartbreaking picture serves as a sharp reminder of the cruelty inflicted on humans deemed property, as well as the moral consequences of such actions. It's a strong narrative that emphasizes the importance of empathy and justice in the face of institutional oppression. In a land where the sun scorches the earth and the air is thick with the weight of injustice, a man named Solomon Northup, known to his captors as Platt, endures the cruelty of a plantation owner. Amidst the brutality, a glimmer of hope emerges in the form of Bass, a Canadian who sees the humanity in Solomon and the iniquity of slavery. As Solomon pleads for help to regain his freedom, a legal battle ensues, challenging the very foundations of ownership and liberty. The story culminates in a poignant reunion with Solomon's family, a testament to the enduring spirit of a man who fought against the chains of oppression to reclaim his name and his life. This narrative, though brief, captures the essence of a struggle that transcends time, reminding us of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. Solomon Northup's legacy extends beyond his harrowing personal ordeal as chronicled in 12 Years a Slave. His subsequent activism in the abolitionist movement and his efforts to assist fugitive slaves via the Underground Railroad highlight his commitment to the fight against slavery. Despite the uncertainty surrounding the details of his death, Solomon's contributions to the cause of freedom remain a powerful testament to his character and the enduring impact of his life's work.